Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Whatever platform you are listening to us on, wherever in the world you are listening to us from, thank you guys so much for listening to us, sharing the podcast, and leaving all the positive feedback that you guys leave. Really appreciate it, and thank you so much for that support. Today's topic is one that I feel like every year becomes more and more important to discuss because of all of the stuff that's out there, not just basketball wise, but just coaching wise in general. There's so much stuff out there, and there's so much great stuff out there, from clinics, YouTube videos, a whole bunch of different programs and basketball philosophies and coaching philosophies in general. One of the great things is that there's so much out there, but one of the potentially stressful and overwhelming things is that there's so much out there. And so I thought it was really important to take some time to dedicate an episode specifically on just keeping things simple and how to still be an effective coach, how to still run an effective program, but not necessarily having it be a complicated program. And I'm hoping that through this discussion, through this interview, if you're listening and you're stressed or overwhelmed or just really struggling with all the stuff that's out there in the basketball and coaching world, that this interview maybe can give you a little bit of a peace of mind and let you know that, hey, you can be successful even if you're doing things on a more simple level, not meaning that it's easy or not meaning that's basic, but just simple, and make it so that it's not so complicated for your program if you find yourself in that situation. So to help discuss this topic of keeping things simple, I am very happy to be joined by the Lady Storm basketball coach out at Athens Christian Prep. My guest today is Coach Ronnie Rains. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thank you for letting me be here.
Awesome. Absolutely. And I appreciate you willing to spend some time discussing this topic. It's a real important one. So Coach, let's go ahead and get started. I know off air you kind of talked about how your coaching journey maybe started a little bit late. Where is your basketball journey, your coaching journey taking you that led you to Athens Christian?
Well, I've been in ministry for a little over 40 years. And, I wanted to, out of high school, that's what my dream was, to be a ball coach. I love the game. And, but the Lord saw different and took me in a different direction. And 8 years ago, actually about 11 years ago, when we moved into Athens to be a part of a church, and I got connected with the Christian school here in Athens. That's only like 14 years old. We're getting ready to go into our year. And after a couple of years of just working here in the chapel and teaching Bible and stuff like that, I was asked to take over the girls program. And that was 8 years ago. And so as far as high school coaching or anything like that, that level, that's it. I've done my 8 years of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was all, little dribblers, rec ball with my kids, other people's kids, and doing all that kind of stuff. And, still coaching, but getting my coaching fixed, but not at the level of, Texas high school basketball.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you mentioned off air, it sounded like this past year was a real successful one for your program.
It was for our girls. This is we won our district, and we're 1A school in TAPS basketball, Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools, which is the largest organization in the country for private schools.
Wow.
It was also our 5th district championship in 8 years, and had a pretty good run. We went 25-6 for the year. Ranked number 4 in the state by TABC, and made it to the Final Four. And unfortunately, we took one on the chin from the eventual state champions. So I guess there's a moral victory. The girls are running around saying, "Well, at least we lost to the state champions." So kind of
I
helps
feel
heal.
it's not. I guess if you're gonna have to lose, it's a lot easier to swallow knowing that you lost to the best, I suppose.
Absolutely.
uh, I know that for a lot of our listeners, obviously we're aware of Texas. We know Texas, but Texas is huge, and I want you to set the stage for the listeners, if you can, about Athens, Texas. Where is it located? What's it like? What's the community like? I know you are in the parochial scene yourself, but can you describe and kind of give our listeners a picture of what it would be like if they were in Athens?
Athens, East Texas town, just about 35 minutes or so east of Tyler, and if you're familiar with that part of the area. And just like any other small town, about 15,000 people, and um, just like any other small town or any town in Texas, it's all about high school football. And so which we don't have yet. We had, but we will have in a couple of years. But and of course, Athens ISD, the Athens High School, has a huge following, and Trinity Valley College, which is one of the premier junior college programs, especially in women's basketball. They have like 8 or 9 national titles. It's unreal. And of course, they're famous now for their cheerleaders. If you watch Netflix and that cheer thing, that's the school here in Athens that has that. And so small but nice little town, and kind of countryish, if you will. But it's a wonderful little East Texas town, and they folks here really support their high school athletics very well.
Before I even had a chance to ask the question, I was going to ask you if football was king over there, but looks like you already answered that for me. So I wasn't surprised to hear that. I hear Texas, a lot of great basketball there, but I know how important football is to the communities over there, especially the small town ones.
Yeah, and as when we're at state tournament, and of course I'm at a church right now also on staff, and the town in the Pointer, they're in the state uh, the men's championships this week, and uh, high school basketball in Texas is very, very good, but it's still not football.
That's a whole nother level. I think it's a whole nother
Yeah,
just it's for those listening, if you're not familiar with what football means, especially the state of Texas, it's like nothing else. I think is the best way I could describe it. Awesome. Let's start with the philosophy, coach, of keeping things simple. How did that philosophy develop for you as a coach? What kind of led to that sort of mindset, that's kind of how you wanted to run things with your program?
well, with starting out here at Athens Christian, we took over a girls program that had been successful early on, but it was struggling. And a lot of the players that I had when I took over, it was all freshmen and a couple of girls that were just on the team, and some had never played the game before. And so, and we get a lot of that in the private schools, especially here in Texas. Kids, you may prepare to have these girls at the end of the year, and when school starts the next year, they're not here anymore, or new girls move in, or just all kinds of things. So it's a little different. There's not that real consistency like you have with public schools as far as who's going to be here and who's not. And so we tried to instead of make it complicated, especially when we get a lot of girls that our school is so small, we don't have tryouts. If you want to play on if you want to play on a team, well, congratulations, you're on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, I finished the season this year with 6 girls. We got to the Final Four with six players.
Wow.
So, and of those 6 players, 3 of them had never played on an organized basketball team before, other than maybe a little rec league when they were little. And so that's kind of the situation I'm in from year to year. And I always have one or two of those players that are like, all in gung ho basketball, and the other girls that are just learning. And so instead of trying to make it complicated, we especially that first year, we just kept it simple and just playing basketball and having a few plays and running an offense, but being consistent with it. And the defense, this is what we're going to focus on defense and a couple of other things. And just, I don't run hardly any set plays at all whatsoever in my offense. And I think because of the situation I'm in, it doesn't work for everybody, but for us and knowing the school, of what we're going to have from year in to year out, it's best for us to kind of keep it simple. And like you said earlier, it can be overwhelming because there is so much, and there's a ton of good stuff out there. And we do, I do go to clinics. I do the YouTube thing, and I meet with college coaches. I have friends that coach in college that help me out and stuff like that. But I think you have to find what's best for your program. Obviously, for me, it's about relationships and knowing what you can do with that group of players that you have. And I think that's what really sets the tone as far as how heavy or how deep you can go into your offense or anything.
Right. So for your players in particular, just to I'm just trying to like think of an example. Obviously, as you mentioned, you talk to college coaches, you go to clinics, so you are obviously your level of knowledge and your understanding of the game is strong, and you can't give all of that to your players because they don't seem like they would be ready for that. So just as an example, what would be maybe a concept or a skill or something that for your program would be like too complicated or like too overwhelming for them, or something that is so complicated that you have to like simplify it or make it accessible at their level?
Gosh, that's a good question for us. Yeah, I think one of the things for us, we tell the girls and we preach to them that they can accomplish anything, they can do anything, but they've got to be willing to put in the work. And we've been fortunate enough over the last 8 years, we've been in the playoffs every year that I've been here, and we've won numerous district titles and made it far. And this is our second trip to the Final Four since I've been here. But it's just for us, I think it's really hard to and the girls that we get from year in and year out, it's hard to really teach the speed of the game, if that makes sense. Because most junior high, I don't care if it's public school or private school, and you come from junior high ball, most of them is just get the ball and go. It's a little bit more advanced version of rec ball.
Sure.
And so they come in, if girls are coming in from junior high with that, you have to take what they've learned in junior high, but then retrain them. And for me, it's all about finding out what their strengths are and where they need to work at. And there are some girls that just can't like get the ball handling down. And so we'll find a role for them to do something different where they don't have to handle the ball so much. Other girls, they can't figure out how to do. But I'm surprised though, and I think a lot of that is our fault as coaches all through the leagues because of the 3-point line and everything. Everybody that comes in just wants to shoot the three. I'm surprised at how many kids just don't know the basics of just a simple layup or the importance of free throws. And
I know.
we have to, we spend a lot of time just getting these girls to shoot layups and teaching them how to do that. And a lot of them are girls that have played before that we just have to show them how. and teach them how to do layups. And I think because of what's going on in the youth sports and what they see on the kids on TV and stuff, that's nothing glamorous about that. It's the basic fundamentals that we have the hardest time to your point, the hardest time teaching these girls, getting them to, because now they have to go back and relearn all that. And we have to spend time on doing basic fundamentals with them. And it takes a little while for them to grasp that because they're not being taught that. And not all the time, but in most cases, they're not really being taught that in their youth leagues and their little dribblers, or even in the AAU level. It's, for the most part, it's all about winning and all that good stuff and getting recognized and then ultimately, I think the biggest thing is just learning how to play as a teammate, being a team member, playing as one. That's the hardest thing, I think, to get across to your kids, because some of them were the girls in junior high or little dribblers that are the main stars. And they get to high school and they find out, they can't, they drive the lane and they get, put on the rear ends, and they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, like I've never had this happen to me before. Like, wait, I can't just score at will whenever I want to.
Yeah. And so honestly, for us, and I would think maybe even a lot of other coaches maybe struggle with this, I would think, is that retraining them just on the fundamentals is actually the hardest thing that you really have to teach these kids, because they're just not getting it unless they have personal trainers or something like that. They're just not getting it at the other levels.
Well, one of the, I think, tough things that sometimes we have as coaches, and I've been there before, is we go to these clinics, we talk to coaches, we watch videos, we learn about all of these really interesting, intricate concepts and ideas that I know sometimes it can be frustrated just to have to spend time on layups and some of these other things that we think that by a certain age they should know. But I guess to your point, it would be really silly to try to put in this intricate system with all of these nuances in it, and then the players maybe can even do it effectively, but then they don't have proper like layup technique, and then they blow the layup, and it's like, well, maybe we should have spent more time on that instead.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, we had a young lady. I say we finished with 6 girls this year. We started with, and through just life and stuff, we ended up with 6 girls. But it forced us to play. Our 2 seniors is all we had, but it forced us to play. All we had left was freshmen and sophomores that never played, high school at this level. And one of our girls that was pushed into, and the average height of my team, and we were very short, it was 5'5" once everybody got hurt and left the team or whatever. And so we had to teach her a whole new role of being a center, basically posting up down low and everything like that. So we had our offense, which is run, designed to draw the defense off the post and boom to the guards, and then the point guard, gets them. Well, she was struggling at first because we just had to work with her on just the basic skills of catching the ball and then making that move to the basket, that one quick step to the basket while you're there, and just putting up. Sounds simple, but if you're not used to doing it, it's not as simple as it looks, especially when you got humans all around you. And so that was a big thing, and she ended up doing a wonderful job, and by the end of the year, and we were able to do that. And it took a lot of pressure off of our guards, our shooting guards especially, because we could penetrate, and now they had the confidence to kick it to her, and they knew that she was going to put it in. But you're right, if you can't to put on all that system and then not be able to get the result at the end because you can't do just the basic things. It's very frustrating.
So adding on to that, let's kind of get into sort of the X's and O's sort of deal of basketball. What do you like to do? I know you just mentioned it, kind of a little bit of the offensive action, also how you don't really do many set plays, but how do you sort of teach or implement what you like to do X's and O's wise? What's kind of the process of that, especially as you said, you have some players who come into your program who really haven't maybe done much beyond rec ball, if that. So what's kind of the process of sort of building things up X's and O's wise to where you want them to be with players that are at, such a varying different skill levels?
For us, it's about, we we teach them about spacing, teaching movement with and without the ball, be constantly moving to make the defense move, making sure they understand that if they're standing around, that makes it easier for the defense to play defense. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, all the stuff that we do is pretty like, well, duh, but it's like we talked about earlier about being overwhelming with all this stuff, where we try to keep it simple. We just like, here's your role. Here's your role in the offense. This is what you do. You're just working this baseline, boom, boom, moving. Here, you got these 3 spots to be, and you go where the ball goes. And when you get the ball, put it in the basket and or kick it out to a shooter. And so it's basically for us, it's all about spacing and movement and getting the girls to understand that it's just a constant, it just never stops. You have to be moving in order for our offense to be effective, because our offense, like I said, we don't run a ton of set plays off of it. We run a motion off. We'll do a 5 out, depending on the defense. We'll do a 5 out or a 5 game or something like that. Or if it's a zone, we'll post in the middle, or we'll run a 3 out and 2 down low or whatever. And but we have to move with the ball, and the girls have to know that. And I think that makes it easier for them. If the ball's on the right and I'm on the left side, and I'm down low, I got to flash to where the ball is, and not, I have to go set these 8 different screens and all these in order to and again, there's nothing wrong with that if you can do it. We just try, and it's all about, and I'll say it, I guess, till I'm blue in the face. It's all about knowing your kids and what they can do, and whether or not you have to keep it simple. Maybe if I was coaching at I don't know, a school that was going to state every year and had 5 to D1 athletes all the time, it might look a little different. I don't know. I'm pretty simple with my methods, and anyway, I just believe in just playing the game and putting the kids in position to where they can be successful, and that's what we try to do with our offense. And there's not a whole lot of fancy X's and O's. It's just give and go, pass, move, send an occasional down screen or screen for the guard, and be at your spot. You got to move with the ball, be at your spot, because you never know if you're going to get it or not.
And I'm thinking that even some of these concepts of just the idea of spacing and constant movement, like depending on the skill level of your players, like that in and of itself could be like challenging enough, and could be a completely different idea of basketball than they're used to, that may be a level of complexity that they can handle, even if we don't necessarily think of it as like complex. Like to them it might still be, and so that might be good enough of a challenge at that level, where like they're still doing things that are maybe different or don't necessarily like come natural to them.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, the girls they get on me all the time because one of my main things is I'll yell at them, or if I'm timeout and I'm frustrated with them for not doing anything and they're not moving, my big go-to phrase is, "Oh my gosh, play basketball." And and they laugh at it, and it sounds simple, but it's really what I want. I want them to play, I want them to be engaged, and with them moving. And it is complex, like you said, because especially with girls, um, and we've sent girls to college to play basketball. It's not like we have nobody. We have a very good team, and we have a very good team right now. I would put them up against anyone. So, but they just have to learn, coming from junior high and coming from rec ball or whatever they came from, to get the basics of movement, ball movement. We stress it on defense, and really our calling card is our defense, and it's really good for them, and they're really good at moving and being where they need to be on defense. And then it's just like when you get out on the offensive end, there's just like they just want to watch, because maybe we had a girl this year, my point guard, who shot 38% from the 3-point line and can handle the ball like nobody's business. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. You just getting so entranced and just watching her play, you're just like, oh wow. And then I know the girls are like, oh man, is Riley gonna, what's she, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be over here.
I'm not just a fan. I'm here too.
And if I get there, and the girls finally realized as we went along playing with Riley that, hey, if I'm where coach says we need to be and we're moving like we're supposed to be, Riley's going to get me the ball, and I'm going to get a chance to score. And people are going to watch me too. So
it's like, I'm on this team as well. I can do some stuff. Yeah.
And it gets them involved. And, if you're coaching a team and the skill levels, and, we played a lot of public schools this year where their school teams were not at the level of our girls as far as skill wise. And so I know not every public school has amazing, not every coach has it easy. Like you said earlier, it's not simple. And especially if you're dealing with teenage girls, and so they more so than boys. And I'm sorry, I'm not PC. So they it's for us, that's it. Just keep it simple and let them move with the ball. And it can be complex, even though once they figure it out, they get, it's a beautiful thing to watch, even in something simple like that, when the offense is flowing, and it's beautiful. But yeah, it can be complex and even overwhelming for kids that's never done that before. They're just used to standing around watching the best player on junior high and just go score 50 points. And
yep. Well, you said defense was your calling card. Is defense something that you also like to keep simple as well?
Yeah, defense. Our defense, we will, depending on our depending on our personnel, it's a little bit more involved. We have been known, we will run a diamond one or a 1-3-1 half court. We'll trap you and try to be there. So there's a lot of movement going there. Or we'll run I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of a 1-2-2. We're putting pressure on the ball handler. So it just depends on the teams that we're playing. We were outsized every game this year. So we had to be careful and keep girls down low to grab the rebounds and go, because we also ran a lot. So we had a very fast team. And so, but still, it's just simple zone, but we will run many different looks out of our zone defense. We're not just gonna, we may play a matchup zone against one team, or we may box and one or triangle two or diamond one or whatever. We're just all over the map with our defense because we feel like that our defense gives our offense the juice to go on and complete the game.
Do you find that teaching the concepts of defense, is that something that is easier or a little bit harder for your players to understand?
I think it's easier for our kids for the defense because they know that they're not, well, for one, you don't have to worry about handling the ball. So they don't have that responsibility or anything. They just have to be in their spot and obviously the block out and get the rebounds and everything. But I think they find that more of a challenge for my kids. They find that a bigger challenge if we can keep teams. We like to keep teams under double digits in each quarter. That's our goal. And so and they take pride in that, hey, this team only scored 4 points this quarter.
Yeah.
They don't even look at what we scored. So we pretty much know our offense is coming. It's going to happen. But it doesn't matter what our offense does if we can't defend the ball.
I kind of find that to be the same case too. I think that defense, I don't know, maybe it just comes, I don't know if naturally is the best word, but maybe there's less thinking involved in it, or maybe there's a lot of it is effort. At least I found that when I've had teams that I've had to coach and really kind of simplify things on, I've found that, getting defensive taken care of and really focusing on that, I found is just a lot easier than some of the offensive concepts. I wonder, I feel like that might just be something consistent across the board. Like in basketball, like defense, we can get those concepts down a lot quicker and players can really grasp those at a quicker rate.
I think so. And defense, I think defense is something that your lesser skilled players is something that they can excel in. We had a couple of girls on our team this year. If they scored 2 points in a game, they celebrated like they won the state championship or something. But they took pride. Defense was something that they could do, and it's something they might not be able to handle the ball or to score, but they can. Man, they can. We had this one girl that. Macy Elgin, and she's a sophomore, and she was just so fierce on defense. She took pride in shutting down, the other team's better players, and that was her goal every night, and it was something she could do. And the team feeds off that. I think the team really feeds off. And one thing I noticed in the championships this year, the teams that advanced and made it to the Final Four, and even the teams that won the championships, both in the public and the private schools here in Texas, were the teams that just really got after you on defense and could defend. There were a lot of teams that we saw in the playoffs and that could score, but they couldn't defend, and so that's made it easy for us. But it was hard for them obviously to win because they were giving up more than they were allowing. So it's just fun to watch the girls play defense. And you're right, it's probably the easiest thing, and it's not a whole lot of thinking. It's just my whole attitude is for the girls is like see ball, get ball, on defense, go the other way.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm a defensive person myself, so I enjoy those who really want to rise up to the challenge and play defense and really get the other teams kind of disrupted on offense. So, players with that attitude, I'm all about. So, yeah, and I think maybe that's just developed for me too, as somebody who's usually coached teams that don't necessarily come in with a lot of skills, that like defense is just something they can just like clamp on right away and get really excited about. And speaking of just like the idea of teaching the game, one of the things that I've always found to be kind of a goal of mine was to help teach the game to my players and help them understand why they're doing the things that they need to know on the court, but at the same time not say so much that now they have way too much spinning on in their head. So I just wanted to kind of talk in a general sense and ask you, how do you kind of go about teaching the game itself? How do you kind of talk to your players and help explain some of the concepts and the ideas of the game, uh, while also kind of keeping things simple so you're not, overwhelming them with too much nuance and too much X's and O's that maybe they don't need?
Well, for me, learning, I was always a hands-on person. I had to do it. My coach could talk to me blue in the face, but if he showed me uh, what to do, or I saw it on video what to do, and I would go out and replicate that the best I can. And that's what I try to teach with the girls. We just keep it very basic. I don't go into explaining, you know, why if you get here first, all so much. I'm just like, if you're on defense, hey, you got to get to the baseline before she does. That's all they need to know. And um, I think just like in anything else, the easier that you try to make it. When we teach, we try to teach things. I want to teach things the girls are going to use in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily care so much. We'll do some drills, but I don't necessarily care so much about dribbling two basketballs at one time. You're never going to do that in a game. And I know I understand the concept, and we do that sometimes, but most of the drills and the coaching, the teaching, and everything is gearing the girls to how they're going to play the game, what they're going to use in a game. So and there's a lot of great drills out there. Again, that could be overwhelming. Just everybody's got the best drill ever, and you got to use this drill, and this is what the University of Connecticut women do, and this is what those are great. And for the University of Connecticut women, if I was Gino Auriemma and I had all those girls on my team, I'd win state every year too. But we're not. And I think the coach has to remember that, just coach within yourself, be who you are. But, and we don't try to make it, some kind of, I don't know how to say it. We don't try to teach them something that, number one, we don't believe in, and number two, something that's just really over their heads. So how we keep it simple is we make sure that everything that we're teaching them when we're coaching, from the drills and practices, everything is all related to the game. It's something that they're going to use in the game, and not just something to just say, oh, look what I can do. I can dribble 5 basketballs at one time without.
Well, I know for me, and I wonder if you're in the same boat. I just almost don't have time to do or coach or do anything with my team that isn't directly going to be something they're going to do in that game, like for practice time, gym time. Like I feel like as coaches, aren't we always just so like stressed for wanting to have more time to work on stuff that, to me, especially as somebody who's coached a lot of teams that just don't have a lot of um, basketball experience when they come into my program, like I don't have a second to waste on things that aren't directly going to be something we'll use in a game.
Yeah, exactly. And as well as I do, and most coaches listening here, especially if they teach or coach high school or whatever, a league that's governed like high school leagues are, you're only allowed so much time anyway during the day to be with your player. And so I don't have time, in the off season. Yes, we can do more of that stuff. I encourage our girls. Several of our girls have personal coaches and skill. I encourage them to get all that there. But when they're with me, when I have them, like you said, I only have hour and a half to 2 hours each day with them, because TAP says I can't go any longer than that during season. And so we spend most of our time, conditioning, game planning and getting ready for the games, and doing those things. And we have to find other ways, like personal coaches or off season and stuff, to work on those skills that and things that you wouldn't necessarily have time to do during the season.
What just to follow up on that, what are some of the things that you found to be in your practices to be sort of like the most effective, maybe like the drills or things that you like to run that you think kind of get the most from your players, especially like you said, you have a lot of players who are just learning the game in that organized fashion, and then they're trying to, get their feet under them and learn how to play successfully on that sort of level. So what do you like?
For the most part, we still
Drills or skills do you do that you think kind of get the most out of your players in terms of their growth?
for our girls, for our drills is a lot of shooting and defending drills, one-on-one to the basket, defending the basket, boxing out, just drills like that. Several drills where there's a lot of running involved, so that they get their running in and they don't realize it a lot of times, and to get their conditioning in. So we spend, honestly, I spend half the time on defense, on footwork, boxing out, and talking to each other. And again, nothing really fancy. And then we spend half the rest of the time on shooting drills, shooting from different spots, setting up cones, shooting from the spots, going around the half court and shooting from those areas, and under the basket, post moves, tons of free throws. We probably get up about, I would say, easily 500 shots a day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then over 100 free throws a day, because like I said earlier, and a lot of that is just basic layup stuff, just over and over, or doing layups while you're being pressure layups, and different styles of doing layups, and how you can go into the basket, and passing the ball, just the basics. Because I think, again, I'm older school, not just old school, older school, where it was all about fundamentals. And I still believe to this day, if you can't, you may have, and we've seen it, we've saw teams that were very athletic and they walked on the floor and we go, oh, wow. But once the game started, they couldn't do some of the basics, like passing and catching and ball handling, and that's all we work on, is passing, catching, ball handling. We work on the fundamentals and shooting and defending, and we spend more time on that than we do on running plays. We put our offense in, and we put our defense in, and that's it. And that's, the girls know what we're going to do it, and we'll go over reminders, our sideline plays, inbound plays. The girls know that. That's one of the first things we put in, and then we spend just a few minutes, really, compared to everything else, a day in practice on running our offense, our defense, or inbounds plays. And the rest of the time, the majority of the time, is on footwork, on just the fundamentals. Because if you can't pass, shoot, or catch, or dribble the ball, then you don't have a chance. I'm older school, and so I believe in the fundamental. If you're fundamentally sound, I think that's going to help you more than knowing a ton of different offenses and all kinds of different things, because that's pretty much how we beat teams this year, is because we've been able to pass and catch, and we've been able to shoot from the basic offense that we run, and that makes a difference.
Well, I think that also kind of speaks testament to the dedication of your girls and their focus, because I know sometimes players can get restless when they feel like they're, just working on a bunch of fundamental stuff a lot of time, and they're get antsy or think they want to do other things. But I think that says a lot about them, that they understand the importance of it, and they understand always working on it in practice, and knowing how it's going to pay off for them later, even if um the other teams, like you mentioned, are like real athletic or look like they can do a whole bunch of things. I think it says a lot about like your girls and their discipline levels to still go hard and still remain consistent, working on those fundamentals in practice.
Yeah, it does. And and when they see the results on the scoreboard, I think that helps too. If you're winning, and I'm not saying you're going to automatically win by doing that, but it helps in a long ways. And our girls have been, they've seen the fruits of their labor. And sometimes, yeah, it does get boring. And we do this every day. We do the same thing every day. We shoot all these shots. And sometimes they come in, hey, what are we doing today, coach? Hey, we're doing our storm drill. We're doing this, and they're going like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. But they do it, and they do it in a way. Obviously we give them goals. We need you to make 20, 25, 30 layups in a row. I need you to make all this, make this many free throws. I need you to shoot this percentage and stuff like that. So we're not just going through the motions, but I think when they see the results out of it, and then when they see the other teams, not necessarily saying that they're bad, but they can do things that other girls that look like maybe they should be better than them, if that
Hmm.
makes sense,
Yeah.
that they're being able to do these things. Oh, well, then they're like, man, I'm kind of glad we do that all the time, because it really helped me. Case in point, one young lady in the regional finals the other night, we work with her all the time under the basket, her drop step to the basket, getting the shot off quickly, getting position on rebounds and stuff like that. And that's nonstop every day with all of our players on just basic stuff like that. But she was one of the main reasons she had her best game of her career. As a
Hmm.
sophomore, she didn't hardly play at all last year as a freshman, but this year she was kind of thrust into that spotlight because, again, we only had 6 players, and so she played. She had to become a starter a little bit before her time, and she
Yeah.
worked on that and and she dropped 14 points for us in the regional championship game, and she was probably the player of the game. Even though we had girls that scored more, she was probably the biggest reason that we won that game, is because she did the little things. She was able to catch the ball. I'm sure this sounds weird to most of the people listening, but she was able to catch the ball, you know, make her move, get the shot up quickly, draw the foul or whatever. And I mean, that's important. And
Hmm.
you go and you watch games and you see kids. And I think the thing that frustrates me the most is when the kids just can't do something simple like catching the ball. And like, it's round, it's just the ball, catch it. And I lose my mind on the sidelines. I'm like sometimes yelling out, just catch the ball.
Yeah.
And frustrates me when I see other teams that just can't do, not being able to do the basics. And I'm sometimes wonder what are we doing with our kids on these teams that they can't do the basics.
Yeah, it is really interesting to see, you know, just teams that are really well coached and they can do all these basics really well. And then you see teams that have like, it looks like the similar level of athletes, but then it's just like a completely different style of basketball because of like that foundation like not being there. And like you said, it's almost a situation where I'm like frustrated for them, or I'm frustrated that they don't necessarily have the skills that I know that they need. Or I'm sure you've been in that situation before where you look at some players and you're like, wow, like, if I had, players like that, just in terms of like their athletic ability or just like what it looks like they're capable of doing. And, it's like, oh, if I got a hold of them, what could I do with you sort of thing. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever been in that situation before.
Yeah, and I have. just sitting there thinking about a team that we played this year, and they had a 6'2" girl, and she was killing us. And she was inside, because I mean, my tallest girl was 5'6".
Yeah.
And all they had to do was just throw the ball into her. But all they wanted to do was just shoot threes. And I was like, thank you. But we beat them. And, I even told the coach after the game, I said, my gosh, coach, if I was you, I'd have been giving that ball to number 14 every time until we could stop her. I said, I don't understand, but thank you, because we ended up winning the game by about 30 points. But the point is that I don't know what we're doing sometimes with our kids. And it's frustrating when I see other coaches and they have the talent too. And I know they're doing the best they can, and they're probably a lot better coach than I am, because I don't consider myself a great coach at all. But it's just frustrating to me to see teams not, again, just being able to do the simple stuff, or to take advantage of what they have and use it in the right way.
And I think that speaks, I think, for a lot of us as coaches, what we just have to make sure that we're doing is just sort of staying disciplined ourselves, and making sure that we're focusing attention on the concepts and the ideas and the skills that are the most important, even if it sometimes can be maybe get a little boring for us, even sometimes, or we're trying to speed the process along. I feel like it's a lot better to just really drill in the things that are the most important to us as coaches, those foundational things, and know that we have that in place, and then build and get as complex as we can, but try to just take it maybe one step at a time, to so that we don't implement a system where it falls apart because, like you said, they don't catch the ball, or they dribble it out of bounds or something. And just kind of stay disciplined, and take it one step at a time as coaches.
Yeah, and it's just it's hard sometimes, because you do want to win, and so you want to try to get there in a hurry. And of course, we live in a world that wants instant results. There's probably a little bit more pressure on the public school coaches than there are on us that coach in the Christian school.
Yeah.
We want to win just as bad as they do, but my coaching position is not based on wins and losses. It's based on relationships and what we're doing with our kids, and how we're developing our players. And that's the way I coach too, is with the relationships and developing the players, taking them right where they're at, taking them, not leaving them there, but just getting them to.
Yeah, like you different success criteria a little bit, right? There's kind of a different I think idea of what success means, depending on where you're at. And so I know that in some cases, if you are coaching at a real high-end school, there might be a lot going on, whereas if you're coaching maybe at a school like that has different values, or maybe just isn't necessarily used to success, that there might be some different expectations placed on you. And I think that's a good point to mention as well. And I know we kind of mentioned about this a couple times, but just now, but what advice would you give, or what are some ways you think that coaches listening out there could kind of simplify their coaching in a way to alleviate stress? Or in general, what advice would you give to an overwhelmed coach who may think that their own coaching has gotten too complicated?
I think the first thing that a coach needs to do, again, this works for me, and I think it works for other coaches too, is if we don't get into a program, especially younger coaches, and think that, number one, that everything that we're going to change the world with our coaching. Number two, I think the most important thing, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, before you can do anything on the court with those kids, really meaningful, I think you need to really get to know your kids, know what you can do, how you can coach them. There are girls on my team that I can wear them out and get all over them, and then there are girls on my team that I have to be kind of gentle with. I can't treat everyone the same, and some coaches don't look at that like that. And I think if we take the focus off of first, I think what would help the coaches better is if you learned your girls, got to know them, build those relationships, while at the same time doing the basketball stuff, and not just come in gung ho with all these expectations and everything without really knowing the team that you have, and what you have to work with. I think that will make it a lot easier on you. I know it does for me. I mean, I know that next year I'll have 90% freshmen on my team. So even though we will have the same goals, winning district, getting to the playoffs, go to state, my expectations for my freshman players are not the same that I had for my senior players this year. So I have to treat them different, and we have to coach them different, and we have to get them up to speed with our program and everything. And so I think I think that's the biggest thing to me is getting to know the players, know what you got, figure out what role they can take on, where they're at in their skill levels and all that kind of stuff before you start implementing all these great things that are going to get you to that state title, and just pouring that on them from the get-go. So just take time. I think if you just take time to get to know the kids and things like that, I think that will help you make your coaching experience more enjoyable, because then you'll really enjoy the games, because I know the kids and what they can do, and I love watching our girls play because I know what they can do, and so get to celebrate with them the little wins and the big wins and the personal things like that. That means a lot to them, knowing that this is where they started and this is where they ended up, and you got to be a part of that process. And it wasn't just about, hey, let's go out here and win 30 games in state and all that, and I don't care where you're at, and we're going to do this. And so for me, it's all about the relationships with the kids. I think if you have that, then I think it will make your coaching life a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not losing sight about why you're doing it to begin with. That's well put. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions I ask every guest. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this first one. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a coaching moment that you think others listening can learn from?
Ooh. That's a good one. And I would think basically what I just talked about. Earlier when I got started coaching, I just wanted to turn the program around so quick that my expectations were a little bit too high of the girls, and I was more concerned about how we looked as a team and how we performed and all that, and I really wasn't concerned that much with the feelings of the girls and how they were responding and all that. And once we got that worked out in the middle of the season, and I realized that matters. That matters a ton. Again, I don't mean anything bad by it, but especially if you're working with high school girls, they want to know that you care. And I think when the kids know that you care about them more than about basketball, they'll run through a brick wall for you. And that's the experience that I've had. But it took me that first part of the season to realize that.
Yeah, it's And you almost like when you have situations like that, I don't know about you, but I thought about this as a teacher and as a coach. I've had situations like that where it's like, oh man, I would love to just go back to that first group of kids and be like, I'm so sorry. I could do so much better now if I had you.
Yeah, exactly. And but like I said, we worked it out,
Yeah.
and we finally figured I finally figured it out that again, you can't, even though you're one team, I think you have to coach. Once you know the girls the way that I know them, I know that I have to coach this girl a little different than this girl, and um, treat them fairly. Uh, but treating them fairly is not necessarily mean they're all equal. So
Yes.
you have
Fair
to
does not
figure it
mean
out.
equal. Yep, that's a good one. Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox, your platform to get out like your final message, closing idea, closing thought, something you just want to leave the listeners with. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of open up the floor to you and kind of let you take it from here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor. Um, I think the biggest thing that I would just share with everybody if in coaching is I just can't stress. And I know I'm coming from it from a Christian worldview from perspective. I'm still in ministry. I don't apologize for my faith, but it's the relationships with these kids is of the utmost importance because they all come from different backgrounds, different home lives. I have several kids on my team, several girls that have, you know, from broken families. Uh, and I think once you get into to knowing your players and not just knowing their names.
Yeah, as Coach was mentioning, you were talking about the idea of not just knowing like their names, but just knowing who they are more so beyond that.
Yeah, beyond that, you know, you have to know. For me, I need to know just about everything about them. You know, why do you want to play basketball? What's going on at home? You know, and I take the time to talk to them. Now it's a little easier for me to do that because I spent 40 years in student ministry working with teenagers, but
Hmm.
you know, it's kind of natural to me. And obviously, we're at a Christian school, so I can more freely talk about things of faith with our kids than the public school coaches can do. But even my public school coaches, what I remember most about them was not the X's and O's. What I remember most about my coach was getting to know me, taking me and not being a friend so much, but being someone there that I could trust, that I knew had my back, that supported me, that encouraged me, and helped me. He was a great teacher. He was a great coach. Uh, he's still communicate and talk with him to this day. He helps me, and it was that coach that took me to the side when I was a freshman in high school and said, "Hey, here's the potential you have. What's going on in your life that you're acting like an idiot right now, and that what can we do? What can I do to help you?" And so that's where I first learned about the relationships, and that's what I would stress most. Get to know your kids.
Awesome. Coach Rains, I want to appreciate you spending some time talking about your unique coaching journey, the philosophy of keeping things simple, how it's worked for your program, worked for your girls, even if you're only down to 6 girls sometimes. And congratulations on a really successful season this past year. And hopefully you have many more to come in the future. So thank you so much, Coach. Good luck going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I hope this helped somebody. I hope it wasn't too simple.
Oh no, this is I think the message that a lot of us, including myself, needed to hear. So thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.